Active Directory Services is Microsoft's identity and access management solution, and in the cloud it is called Microsoft Entra ID. And we have Active Directory Services in on-premises as well for quite a while. So before looking at how it works in cloud, let's understand how it works in on-premises, and then we will see what are the advantages of moving to cloud-based identity and access management solution called Microsoft Entra ID. So in on-premises, you will have something called Active Directory System. This system is used for organizing and managing users, computers, and other network connected devices. So this includes things like printers, scanners, and other network connected devices. And if you see this picture here, within this Active Directory system, we have users and computers here. And these are grouped into something called a domain. You can think of domain as a namespace. For example, if your company is called YourCorp, then your company's domain name might be something like yourcorp.com. Okay, so the domain is created to group users and computers so that they can be managed together. So same policies can be applied and they can all be managed in a same way. So that is what a domain represents. Okay. And for each of the users and devices within the domain, we'll have unique ID. So if you take a user called John, then John might have a unique ID, something like this, john@yourcorp.com. And if you have a computer 1 within the domain, then that computer might have a unique ID, something like this, which is computer1@yourcorp.com. And we can also have multiple domains. So some companies will have multiple domains to group the users and computers logically in different domains. And we have the service called Active Directory Domain Service, and this is the service which is responsible for creating and managing the domains. Okay, so all of these will be within a server called Domain Controller. So Domain Controller is actually a server which hosts all of these. Normally the users, groups and everything will be inside something called Active Directory Database, and Active Directory Domain Service is a service which is responsible for creating and managing these domains. Okay. Now, if we look at the Active Directory Domain Service in detail, Active Directory Domain Service is responsible for handling authentication and authorization requests. So, when you have users and computers and everything within your domain, if you want to authenticate those users or computers, then Active Directory Domain Service is the service which is going to provide you that feature. Okay. In addition to that, with Active Directory Domain Service, you'll be able to centrally manage users, computers, and other devices. And you can apply group policies like, password policies and what softwares you can install and what cannot be installed and other desktop settings. So all these kind of policies are called group policies, and these can be defined and applied at a domain level using Active Directory Domain Service. We have the same functionality and much more in Azure Cloud as well. And the service which provides this functionality is called Microsoft Entra ID. So with Microsoft Entra ID, you'll be able to control and manage access to Microsoft apps. This includes things like Office 365 and other Microsoft apps. And you can also control and manage access to your own apps. Okay. And if you have on-premises Active Directory, then you'll be able to sync the data between on-premises Active Directory and cloud-based Micro Entra ID using a service called Microsoft Entra ID Connect. So this will be continuously syncing the data between on-premises Active Directory and cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID. So if you add a user here, that will be synchronized and copied into Microsoft Entra ID. And if you add a user here, for example, then that will also be copied across. So this will be useful if you have any hybrid solution where you cannot migrate some of the functionality or applications into cloud and you would like to continue the existing support. Okay. So now we understand what cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID is. It provides same functionality that we have in on-premises. Let's understand why we would choose cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID over the on-premises one. Okay. First of all, Microsoft Entra ID is fully managed service, which means you don't need to maintain and patch domain controller. So domain controller is actually a physical machine, right? So you need to maintain and patch that server periodically. But with the fully managed Microsoft Entra ID, you don't need to do that. And Microsoft Entra ID comes with built-in support for remote and hybrid login. So if someone needs to log into your domain, then without Microsoft Entra ID, you probably need to have something like a VPN to log into the domain. But with Microsoft Entra ID, we don't need VPN, it supports remote and hybrid working out of the box. And Microsoft Entra ID also provides better security. So this includes things like conditional access, and it can also detect suspicious sign-in activities and stop them. And Microsoft Entra ID also provides option to self-reset users' passwords. So they themselves will be able to reset their passwords. And it also allows you to use single sign-on for both cloud-based and on-premises apps. So although the service is hosted in cloud, the single sign-on functionality that it provides can be used for on-premises application as well. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of using cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID over on-premises Active Directory service. Okay, so for any new setup, cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID is a recommended service rather than setting up something on your own in on-premises infrastructure. Okay, so that is all I wanted to share. I hope this is useful. Thank you.